The handcuffs bit into his wrists, cold steel against warm skin. Arthur Jones, a middle-aged black man, grunted as he was shoved against the chilly bonnet of his car. His breath came in short, heavy bursts, a constable's knee grinding into his back. His forehead pressed into the chip paint, and his eyes watered from the glare of headlights slicing through the night. The white officer snarled, his pistol jabbed at Arthur's temple. Out driving after dark. Got to be up to no good, eh? Arthur's voice shook, a mix of fury and steady calm. As he tried to speak, you're making a terrible mistake. The two constables sneered, their laughter sharp and mocking. Someone like you, someone like you, They didn't let him get another word in. They rummaged through his pockets, rifled his car, and tossed his papers onto the damp pavement. Little did they know their world was about to unravel in mere minutes. How had the city's most respected figure ended up pinned like a common crook? All because of his skin. And what price would they pay when the truth hit home? The night draped the outskirts of Bristol, Connecticut, a quiet stretch where us and UK influences mingled, in a deep indigo, dotted with the golden glow of far-off street lamps. Towering oaks faded in the rear view as Arthur Jones steered his trusty Morris Minor along the silent road. The car's gentle hum merged with the stillness, broken only by a breeze rustling the leaves. Arthur was no stranger to this place. As Zane had spent over 20 years championing fairness for those overlooked amid the suburban sprawl. Yet, with his graying hair, kind face, and eyes etched with time's lines, he never carried himself like a big shot. Tonight, no fancy ride, no driver. Just him and the car he'd cherished for decades. About 2 hours back, he'd been at a charity do downtown. A free supper for the homeless. He hadn't gone to grandstand or snag a snapshot for the papers. I sat among them, shared a plate of stew, and listened. An older black chap, out of work, for 2 months. Folks see me as a layabout, a drain. They don't know I grafted 30 years. Those words stuck with Arthur as he drove home. Fairness, what did it even mean anymore? The road stretched darker than usual, streetlights few and far between, casting long shadows. At 50, his eyes were weary but sharp on the wheel, his hands steady, though his heart carried the weight of too many battles fought. The Morris Minor to a gentle stop as the traffic light ahead flicked to red. The brakes sighed softly, and the car settled. Not another soul was up, just the low purr of the engine, and the steady rhythm of his breath filling the silence. His mind drifted, heavy with the thought that all his speeches, all his years fighting for justice, still weren't enough. Then, a flash of red and blue snapped him back. Dancing in the rearview mirror, a police car rolled up behind, lights pulsing, like a heartbeat, signaling him to stay put. Arthur didn't feel shock, just that old familiar knot in his gut. Even as Zam, even with a spotless record, he knew this dance too well. He let out a slow breath, steadying himself, headlights off, hands firm on the wheel. A ritual black man in Bristol, Connecticut, picked up young, same as anywhere. Keep Am visible, don't twitch. Don't give Am a reason. In the mirror, two figures climbed out of the patrol car, tall, clad in dark uniforms, striding with that quiet confidence. No rush, but their shoulders were squared, eyes keen. One lifted a hand to his radio, muttering something, while the other edged closer. Arthur swallowed hard. He'd faced coppers plenty in his career. Council meetings, press rows, but not like this, not alone on a quiet lane. No cameras, no crowd, just him. A torch beam sliced through the dark, hitting Arthur square in the face. He squinted, the light stinging, and took a deep breath to settle his nerves. Through the window, he saw them coming. Two officers, steps measured but taut, like they were sizing up a threat. Arthur knew this scene from newsreels, from town hall talks, from the stories folk told him over tea or coffee. But now it was him in the hot seat. Him they were eyeing. They stopped by the car, one at the driver's door, the other hanging back, hand resting near his holster. That said it all. No trust here. Arthur rolled the window down slow, deliberate, hands glued to the wheel to dodge any mix-up. The officer at the door was Constable Evans, a tall white bloke mid-30s, with a cropped cut and a jaw like a brick. His face was stone, eyes narrow and cool, like he was staring down a queue. Thief? Not a man who'd done no wrong. Behind him stood Constable Taylor, younger, a bit green, but with a gaze just as sharp. Arthur kept his breathing even, though his chest tightened. This wasn't the they saw. Just another black fellow, caught out after dusk. Constable Evans bent close to the car door, his voice low and cutting. Car papers and license, now. Arthur Jones didn't argue. Moving slow and careful, before reaching forward, he said softly, "I'll get my papers. They're in the glove box." Had heard too many tales. Lads shot over a twitch gone wrong. Every move could spark trouble, and he knew it. Evans didn't reply, just arched a brow, signaling him to go on. Arthur popped the glove box, pulled out his wallet and registration, and handed them over, steady as a rock. Inside, though, tension coiled through him like a spring. Evans took the papers, flicking his eyes over them with a lazy glance. Then he hit Arthur's name, Arthur's Jones, and his gaze sharpened. Doubt creased his face as he sized Arthur up, top to bottom, like he was measuring if this man matched the ink. Evans smirked. "This your car, or did you nick it off someone?" Arthur bit back a sigh. That old lie. He'd heard it from folks in his community 100 times. Stop for driving something decent, something they shouldn't have. He kept his tone even. It's mine. Papers say so." But Evans wasn't buying it. He passed the documents to Taylor, crossed his arms, tilted his head, and fixed Arthur with a frosty stare. "Got this late. Got something to hide." Arthur's brow furrowed. It wasn't a real question, just a jab. "Nothing to hide. I've been at a charity supper, heading home." Evans sneered, shooting a look at Taylor like Arthur had cracked a joke. "Charity supper, eh? Very bums. But a black fella alone this time of night gives us reason to wonder." Arthur's grip tightened on the wheel, just a touch, but his face stayed calm. He wasn't one to snap. His whole career, 20 years of council rows and speeches, was built on keeping cool. Still, the way they talked, the way they pegged him a villain for his skin, it stung deep. "Driving after dark's not a crime," he said. Evans' eyes narrowed, clearly irked by the pushback. A heavy hush fell, thick with strain. Then, quick as a whip, Evans reached out and yanked the door open. Before Arthur could blink, a rough hand clamped his arm, hauling him out of the car. "Now!" Evans barked, dragging him free. Arthur stumbled, his back clipping the door, and in a flash, Taylor had his pistol up, aimed square at his head. Face down on the bonnet now. Arthur froze, just for a heartbeat. Pictures flickered through Arthur Jones' mind. Other black men who never made it through nights like this. He knew arguing was pointless, knew these two had already cast him as the villain. Slowly, he lifted his hands and pressed his face to the icy bonnet of the Morris Minor. His breath came hard. Humiliation, rage, and fear, all tangled up inside. The constables didn't give him a moment to speak. Evans started frisking him, rough hands shoving him forward, digging through his pockets, his trousers, even his shoes, like he was some hardened crook. Arthur kept his voice low, steady. "I'm Arthur Jones. I'm asking you to calm down, check who I am, and stop this now." But they didn't stop. Instead, Evans and Taylor laughed, sharp and mocking. Evans pressed Arthur's head harder against the bonnet, smirking. "Bah, don't kid us. If you're the I'm the bloody Prime Minister." Arthur shut his eyes. Tonight, he wasn't the bow, just a black man pegged as trouble. The metal chilled his cheek, but there was nothing next to the shame boiling up inside. His breathing quickened, though he fought to keep it even. Stay calm. Don't kick off. Don't make it worse. Lessons every black lad learned early, handed down like heirlooms. But it didn't end there. Keep still, you sod. Evans growled, snatching Arthur's wrists and wrenching them back. The clink of a charm. Handcuffs cut through the night, metal biting into his skin so tight it ached. "So do you think you are, giving us orders?" Taylor jeered, looming close, pistol still in hand. Arthur stayed silent. Anything he said would just egg them on, make them itch to grind him down more. Then, with a sudden shove, Evans sent him sprawling. Arthur hit the ground, his knee smacking the pavement, a jolt of pain shooting up his leg. Before he could steady himself, a heavy weight crashed onto his back. Evan's knee, pinning him down, pressing hard. His chest burned, air turning thin. Arthur gasped. The breath barely asked. Coming, each pull ragged and weak. His mind flashed. George Floyd, that name, that story. Fear spiked through him. He couldn't breathe. What you doing out here this late? Evans hissed, knee unmoving. Taylor chimed in, voice dripping with scorn. Bet you scarpered from a break-in. Evans leaned close to Arthur's ear, sneering. Or just flogged a load of gear. This car's probably stuffed with it. Humiliation, contempt. It wasn't new, but it cut all the same. The sting of it burned deeper than ever when it was Arthur Jones on the receiving end. He wanted to shout that he wasn't some crook. He was the heir of this town. But what did that of this town? But what did that matter to them? He was just a black man, cuffed and pinned to the dirt. No respect, none to who he was. Just prejudice and brute force. But it didn't stop there. A voice cut through the night from across the road. Oi, what you lot up to? Taylor whipped round. A bloke stood there, phone up, filming them. I'm live streaming this. You're making a right mess of it. He was a local, gobsmacked at the sight. Two white coppers pinning a middle-aged black fella in a quiet estate, treating him like a proper villain. Evans and Taylor stiffened. Evans forced a smirk, trying to play it cool. Clear off, mate. This is police business. But the man didn't budge, keeping the camera rolling. Not shifting. I'm catching it all. This'll be on the telly by morning. Evans clenched his jaw. A camera changed the game. Evidence meant no easy wriggle out, like before. Hey, Tazen is advancerans. Wisaba, scarper, or you'll regret it. The man stood firm. The stream humming on. Meanwhile, back at the station, a call crackled over the radio. Arrest in progress, western suburbs. Black suspect in custody. Chief Constable Helen Price frowned, leaning in. Who's the suspect? The reply stopped her cold. Sorry. She didn't waste a second, bolting from her desk to the patrol car. Red and blue lights flared as Chief Constable Helen Price tore through the streets, engine roaring. Her heart thumped like a drum. She'd handled countless calls in her years, but this, Arthur Jones, Arthur Jones, no chance. Her grip tightened on the wheel, fury bubbling up. Who'd be daft enough to nick the meh? And worse, from the live stream pinging across social media, they'd cuffed him, aimed guns, and knelt on his back. She floored the pedal. Trouble didn't come alone. This wasn't just a cock-up. It was a scandal that could sink the whole force. The closer she got, the louder the sirens wailed, twisting her gut. She didn't want this. Chief Constable Helen Price didn't want those. Sirens screaming. Not for this. They shouldn't have sounded at all. Not when the man in cuffs was innocent, let alone the top brass of the town. Minutes later, she screeched to a halt mid-road and stepped out. The scene hit her like a Arthur Jones, handcuffed, kneeling on the frosty ground. His face was a mask of pain and shame, though he held steady, no shouts, no thrashing. One look in his eyes, though, and Helen knew what Hyde had been through. A small crowd had gathered, some with phones up. Failing in outrage, a few called out, "Let him go now." But what set Helen's blood boiling were the two coppers standing there, Evans and Taylor, clueless to the mess they'd made. Helen's voice boomed, raw with fury. "For heaven's sake, you've just nicked Arthur Jones." The words rang out, silencing the street. Evans and Taylor froze, swapping panic glances. What? Evans stammered, sweat beading on his brow. "He's real." Taylor gaped at Arthur, disbelief etched across his face. They stood like statues, faces flushing, shame or fear, hard to tell. Helen stormed forward, flicking a hand, unknocking the cuffs. The clatter of metal on rough pavement sounded like a wake-up call. Evans and Taylor quaked. Taylor buckled first, dropping to his knees before Arthur, hands clasped, lips tight with dread. Me. For. Evans sank down too, eyes brimming, all that earlier swagger gone. "We didn't mean it. Please see our side." He choked, voice wobbling on the edge of tears. but no one spared them a scrap of pity. The owl, just some regular black fella. Would he still be breathing tonight? That thought sent a shiver through the crowd. Avens and Taylor stayed there, kneeling, eyes wild, faces twisted with terror. Every ounce of their earlier scorn had evaporated. Now, before Arthur Jones, they were just two blokes scrambling to save their skins. No one stepped up for them. No one piped up in their defense. Everyone knew what I'd done. Chief Constable Helen Price glared at her two underlings, disappointment and anger simmering in her chest. This wasn't something they could brush under the rug. This wasn't a mess to be swept under the carpet. No apology could fix it. Arthur Jones rose slowly, his body still aching. Though that paled next to the humiliation had endured, he stayed quiet, brushing the grit off his coat. But his eyes, those told the whole story. Avens and Taylor stayed on their knees, sweat pouring, not daring to look up. Arthur shut his eyes for a beat. If this were his first time, he might have chalked it up to a slip up, but he knew better. This wasn't a fluke. It was a system centuries old, where black folks were crooks the second they stepped out the door. He drew a deep breath, eyes hardening, then fixed on the two coppers at his feet. His voice wasn't calm anymore. Sharp, brimming with authority and rage. You say you didn't know me, so if I wasn't Al, what then? Pull the trigger right here. Then tell your boss I was dodgy. Evans and Taylor shook, speechless. Arthur stepped closer, voice cutting deeper. I've run this town over 10 years, trying to build a place where no one's judged by their skin. And yet here I am, treated like a villain, just for being black. He jabbed a finger at Evans' face, eyes blazing. Look at me. Look hard. Tonight, you're not just shaming me. You're shaming that badge on your chest. Evans opened his mouth, but Arthur snapped. Shut it. No excuses. Think I don't know how often this happens. How many black folks get stopped, searched, beaten, killed, no justice? Taylor reached out, timid, voice quaking. Me, Ma, Mo, please. I've got a family. I can't lose it all. Arthur's smile was thin, bitter. Oh, now you're scared. What about me? Was I scared with a gun at my head? Your mace knee on my back. You're not trembling when you play the big man, but you're like kids when it bites back. Evans and Taylor winced, tears welling, but no one spared them a kind word. Arthur turned to Chief Constable Helen Price, voice firm. I want them suspended now, and a full investigation of your force. This doesn't end here. Helen nodded sharpish. Chim, Mr. Slapped with 8 years in jail. A few days on, Arthur stood at a press conference, facing a sea of cameras, calm as ever, but a fire flickered in his eyes. He cleared his throat, words ringing out slow and clear. I'm lucky, What? How many errant? The room hushed. How many get stopped for their skin? Humiliated, beaten, killed. No one filming, no one held to account. He eyed the reporters, voice steady as steel. This isn't about me. It's about a system that's been broken too long. And I swear to you, I won't stop till we've got fairness, where no one's afraid for their color. Claps thundered through the fear. Oh, this wasn't just a wrongful arrest. It was a wake-up call, a slap to a rotten system, making folks across the US and UK wonder, isn't it time for change? Thanks for listening, friends. If this story hit home, give us a like and subscribe. Don't miss tomorrow's tale. We've got more meaningful stories coming your way. The story of Arthur Jones, a black owl wrongfully arrested in Bristol, Connecticut, lays bare hard-earned lessons about justice and prejudice. It shows how even a respected leader can be reduced to a suspect by a system steeped in bias, where skin color trumps truth. Arthur's ordeal, cuffed, pinned, and humiliated by Constables Evans and Taylor, teaches that power without accountability breeds arrogance, while their downfall proves consequences can catch up fast when the truth breaks free. Guaranteed, and change demands voices, whether a bystander's camera or a bow's resolve, to challenge what's broken and push for a world where no one's judged by the shade of their skin.